So let's get started. Let's look at today's discussion: risk and sources of risk in agriculture. We address that: risk management principles, risk identification and prioritization, common strategies for risk treatment, some important risk management priorities. Risk, what is it? It's a chance of loss, likelihood, probability of adverse outcome, uncertain consequences, exposure to hazard, peril, or potential loss. Two components of risk: frequency, which is the probability of loss, and severity is the size of the loss. The world according to risk: random assumptions and thoughts about risk. Risk is not inherently bad. There is a risk return trade-off. Risk can be managed. If you can't measure it, it's hard to manage it. Accurate information is essential in formulating plans and strategies. Individuals' perceptions of risk differ. Thus, they respond differently to common risky events. Often there's more than one right way of responding to risk. So that's essentially saying that everybody's risk is not going to be the same, and everybody's going to take different risks in their operation and in their farming operation. So look at risk according to what's comfortable for you. Where to begin? One common method of classifying risk is to look at risk as it affects the various functions on a farm: production, marketing, finance, human resource, legal. And remember, there's a tremendous overlap and interaction between these categories. In your opinion, which of the following categories of risk is the greatest for producers? Is it production, finance, marketing, human, or legal? Which one do you think is the greatest for producers? Production risk, what is it? Any crop or livestock production related activity or event that is uncertain. Variability in production caused by weather, disease, pests, genetic variations, machinery, failure, timing, etc. All those variables could cause production risk on your farm. And production risks are some of the things that you have to look out for. Like in an event, you never know when we're going to have a drought, or when we're going to have flooding or excessive rain, or when there's going to be a storm. So that all encompasses production risk. When we look at one of the ways that we look at avoiding diseases is doing a crop rotation, avoiding pests, genetic variations, or machinery failure. Machinery failure is one of the things that happen to a lot of farmers that I've been coming in contact with as to the reason why they can't get a lot of crops out of the field, especially our grain crop producers, because no one tends to put in a preventive maintenance plan. So for future references, to avoid that risk, have a preventive maintenance plan in place. Production risk: production uncertainty in crops enterprises is caused by a variation of weather and disease by insects and other biological pests. Livestock enterprises also involve production uncertainty. Death losses for some of your animals and disease and adverse weather conditions are common. Okay. Number two, following production risk, which is the most threatening to your operation? Is it drought, excessive moisture, too wet, temperature too hot or too cold, diseases, pests, old unreliable machinery, increases in inputs, whether it be diesel, fertilizers, or other? One of the things that I've noticed about with anything in agriculture that's agriculturally related is that the soil must be maintained. If you don't have good, healthy soils, your plants can't get a good optimal stand to produce yield, or your pastures can't produce grasses to keep your animals fed. So everything starts with the land, with the soil. So make sure you take good care of the soil. Marketing risk, what is it? Any marketing related activity or event that is uncertain. And I'm just doing a recap of a lot of things. Leading to a variable of prices for outputs and for inputs. Fluctuations in the farm inputs and product prices causes a basic supply and demand relationships. Competition for substitutes, government interference, technological change, and etc. Fluctuations in input prices or purchase inputs. They all could change within the market. So which would be the most threatening to your operation? Would it be low commodity prices, lack of market access, high input prices, meeting quality requirements, market proximity, the distance to that particular market, the lack of value-added opportunities? Is it competition or is it anything else? These are some of the risks that you have to look for. Looking at when you measure market. Second most threatening of your operation, could it be low commodity prices, lack of market access, high input, meeting quality market proximity, lack of value added? Which is the second most? Which is the third most? Just look at all of these things when you're looking at measuring your market when you start your business plan, and look at how you're going to analyze or how you're going to overcome some of these risks when it comes to marketing risk. Financial risk, what is it? Any uncertainty that directly threatens the financial health of the farm business or results in financial loss. This includes the cost and available of capital. So how do you get capital? Are you going to be getting a loan? Are you going to be getting a grant if you have a nonprofit? So capital is important as to how you're going to be able to operate your farm. Meeting your cash flow needs. Your cash flow is anything that you have your assets, your liability, and your capital, and you must cash flow in order to make the two work together. Cash flowing is anything that I've learned, that anything that you make that's over $1. But we know $1 is not much, but anything. So I like to say anything you make over $1,000, depending on which agriculture enterprise that you're into. The ability to maintain and grow equity within your farm, the ability to maintain family limit expenses. As Dr. Evans talked about earlier, you want to be able to grow your farm to where it's able to take care of you, is able to pay your mortgage or pay a car note, or able to send your child to college. It's okay if you want to be a hobby farmer. I have nothing against hobby farmers, but if you're growing this farm to be successful, to make your farm take care of your household, you have to look at these risks, these risks that's going to bound to happen one day. So you must look at how you would overcome these risks when these challenges tend to face you, when you tend to face these challenges. Record keeping is one of the challenging things that working with a lot of small and limited resource farmers that we have, that we work with, having those farmers to keep records is hard because we have a lot of farmers that know how to keep records. However, to do the work, but they don't keep adequate records. So record and maintain adequate records, document items you purchase, limit legal liabilities in some cases, required for insurance purposes, improve management skills and decisions. Lenders like to see that you can keep records, because if they know you can keep records, they know that you have a better chance of paying them back in an event that you attempt to borrow money. So having that record keeping system that suits you is good. Not all record keeping systems are the same, but design your record keeping system to where it works for you and that is accurate. The following financial risks, which is most threatening to your operation. Loan approval, understanding my farm operation. The lender doesn't understand my farm operation. Poor debt structure, inadequate equity, asset life doesn't match the long term. Poor asset structure, inadequate assets, turnover rate, low rate of return on assets. So when we're looking at a low rate of turn on assets, you want to look at your business as, if you're growing, I'm gonna use the example of tomatoes. You have to grow a certain acreage amount of acreage in tomatoes to be able to cash flow for the amount of the loan that you want to get in order to pay that money back. So I've had people to talk about, hey, I want to start a farm. We get this all the time. I want to start a farm, but they want to know what they can grow. And me, I don't give it advice on what to grow. I always tell the person to research it. But a lot of the times, a lot of people want to grow something that they've seen that's come out. Like what's been real popular is hemp. Now, not everyone is going to be successful in hemp growing, but hemp is one of those new crops that the government is still learning about how to actually put out the research to actually finance it. I know this because about 2 months ago, I used to work for the Farm Service Agency, and when hemp first came out and it was introduced, we had no idea of how we were going to manage it. All I know that they said that the hemp would you can grow hemp in a room of 8 by 10 room, as long as you can provide a farm number for it. Those are some of the things that they looked at, how you could grow hemp. But the rate of return on what it's going to be used for didn't have the information on it. But they were showing how you can grow it, and you have to show a market as to where you're going to process, whether you're going to be using it for fiber, whether you're going to use it for oil, or whatever medicinal purposes you want to use it for. Current debt level too high, bad credit history, high credit card debt, consumer debt, and others. Which is most threatening to your operation? So human risk, what is it? Any event relative to the human element of the farm that is uncertain. The character, health, the behavior, the interrelationships of people with that are unpredictable, death, disability, and divorce, and critical risk factors, unpredictable family, and higher labor relations. One of the things about human risk is that we don't know, that we always know that we think we're going to be healthy, but we never know in an event that where sickness may find us. So in an event that we get sick, we need to think about who's the next person that's going to be in place. In the event of our demise, who's going to be the next person that's going to step up to the farm? Or in an event of a divorce. Normally in divorces, whichever partner normally gets half of the farm. So unpredictable family, and hired labor. Hired labor can be expensive, especially if you can get labor if you get labor that's really not bringing in the money, the results that you're looking for, especially if hand labor and they're doing some harvesting. So the following, which is the most threatening to your operation, whether it be an off-farm employment opportunity, poor health, disability, availability of reliability, and the cost of hired labor, no written operation plan for your farm business, no formal retirement plan or management succession plan, working with family, exhaustion, stress, or just burnout. Which is the most threatening to your operation, or some of the risks that you have to look at? Legal risk. So we talked about legal risk as being an activity or an event that threatens the legal standing of the farm or puts the farm in legal jeopardy. The business structure, estate planning, contractual arrangement, tort liability, statutory compliance, an environmental issue, etc., could be part of be the legal risk portion of it. And we try to make sure that we have structures and compliance in place in an event that something happens in our farming operation. And the following legal risks which most threatening to your operation: is it that you don't have proper contract requirements, product liability, personal or employee liability, a property title or ownership entanglements, whether it be by heir or whether it's joint ownership, environmental regulations. Do you have something in place to transfer to the next generation, or urban rural interaction issues? These are all legal risk issues that can be threatening to your operation. Here are the other factors to consider. So risk management, all the things that carry producers may do to influence the bottom line of the business and grow long-term value or net worth of the business. Risk and return or profitability are related, and the relationship must be managed. Risk management steps. Let's identification, assessment, treatment, implementation, and evaluation. Those are some of the risk management steps that you need to look at identifying when starting your farm. Risk identification: know your inventory and document for your farm. Identify different sources of risk in the farm operation, whether it's production risk, marketing risk, financial risk, human resource risk, and legal risk. The assessment would be to determine the implication on each risk on the farming operation. Two measures used for assessing the risk are the frequency, which is the probability, how often a risk event may happen over a period of time. That could be on your farm. And the severity would be the size. How large is that risk? Large or small is that risk? And does it have the potential for loss or arising from the event? Loss arising from the event, excuse me. So where do we go from here? Some common sense priority practices that all farmers should be able to incorporate into their management practices to reduce their risk exposure. Take time to do things right. Don't move faster than you can think. Wear protective gear. Properly store chemicals, fuels, pesticides, and etc. in a proper place. Maintain equipment. Adopt a stress management plan and teach your children and others about safety, whether it's age-appropriate tasks or friends and visitors. Use good agriculture practices. Follow industry or university standards: IPM, nutrient management, rotational grazing, herd health, chemical and fertilizer application rates, etc. Record and maintain adequate records. Documentation required for whether it be chemicals, limit legal liabilities in some cases, required for insurance purposes, improve management skills and decisions. Review policies and know their terms. Pay attention to exclusions. Evaluate coverage levels of deductibles. Shop around and compare. Get a good agent who gives you the service you need. Pay attention to your liability exposures. Analyze the writing and impact decisions, the what, the how, the why, the expectations. Maintain orderly records. Keep and file receipts. Keep and file ownership manuals, paperwork. Create memory aids. Document. Engage in formal farm business planning. And as I close, I want you to remember this: a bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the turn. Risk management is all about anticipating the bends in the road and successfully making the turns.
We did have one question from Christina. I
Okay.
don't know was for Mr. Bill or if it's for you, but she asked where can she find the enterprise budget tool?
That enterprise, yeah, that's one for Dr. Evans. Uh, that enterprise budget tool, I know on Mississippi State has one. That's the only one I know that has an enterprise budget tool. And it's normally msucares.com. I mean, is it dot? Yeah, .com. If it's not .com, it's .edu. But I think it's coming from Mississippi State Extension Service. So there's nothing else. We want to thank you all for coming out to our workshop. And we really appreciate everything. Thank you so much.